what did the North like best about what the South, what's the one thing the South gave to the North in the Compromise of 1850? You guys haven't started studying yet? You haven't retained anything? Go ahead.
The parallel from the Missouri Compromise went all the way to California.
Right, but then it didn't because it went through California, so they needed a new compromise. So what did the South give to the North?
Nothing.
No, that's the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Go ahead. California is a free state. So, okay, so we're studying tonight, really hard. Okay, all right, so I would familiarize yourself with the following names, which could appear as correct or incorrect answers early on in the test. Clay, Calhoun, Webster, Polk. Polk, he's the Manifest Destiny president. Yes, but what happened to all that land we got in Manifest Destiny? It became controversial because...
Slave or free slave.
Free or slave. Brooks.
Who's Brooks?
He's the guy who beat Sumner with a cane, and cane rhymes with Hayne, and Hayne was in the last unit, but Hayne, remember, was the guy arguing for nullification from South Carolina. He was sort of doing Calhoun's dirty work in the Webster-Hayne debate. So I would try to look up and get a bullet point or make sure you got a little idea about each of those bad boys. Yes? Yes. I just gave you Haynes. All right, Douglas. The first time Douglas is on the scene after he gets the Compromise of 1850 passed is the Stephen, with one S, is the really famous thing he's known for. Even before that, the thing that made him famous and made him senator for the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Okay, and popular sovereignty first became a major part of U.S. policy in it was part of the Compromise of 1850, but in the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So I'd certainly know all parts of the Compromise of 1850, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, those sort of things that worked our way toward it. I would know, though not in as much detail as the compromise as the elections of 1860 and 1876, the election of 1856. I would really know 56. What's that? Buchanan won, but the key part is it marks the first time on the scene of a new party known as the Whigs were way back in the 1830s. They're dying out.
Let's see, I think I have that.
The Republican Party.
I'm a winner.
The new party with the old name that was against the spread of slavery, formed after the Kansas-Nebraska Act. See how this is all sort of intertwined? Hannah, Radhika, you guys got nothing? No idea? Never heard this? Okay, I would certainly study the Dred Scott decision closely. Then I would say there could be up to 4 questions that are like speaker, spoken to, etc. Those will be fine. Then I would say there could definitely be...
Can you repeat?
Like speaker questions, like which one of these is a Southerner, which one of these is a Northerner, which one of these is a Republican, which one of these is Buchanan, which one of these is Lincoln, which one of these is Douglas, etc. Okay, then there could certainly be at least a couple questions about the election of 1860. There could be one Crittenden Compromise question. Crittenden, Crittenden. Crittenden Compromise. And then just, you have to remember in general, it's the Civil War is not just slaveholder versus abolitionist. In fact, slaveholders in the South, remember, were a minority, and large plantation owners were a small minority. And abolitionists in the North were also a small minority. So remember those things as you go in. It's not just slaveholder versus abolitionist. It's agriculture versus factory. It's national government versus sectional nullification type of government. There's a lot to it. So I'd really make sure you have all those themes down.
What did you say it was secular government?
Sectionalism versus strong national government versus like a sectional type of, we should be able to nullify more power for the states. Okay. Now let's move up to after the break to the Civil War itself. And hopefully we will start clicking. Okay. So what were some northern advantages over the Confederacy when the war began?
They had manufacturing factories.
Better weapons, industrial production,
Much more populous.
more population, better internal transportation, more banks. What were some southern advantages over the north?
They had to defend.
Only had to defend. What else? Better trained soldiers initially, farm boys. Better generals. So you might get questions if I want to make it really much harder and more difficult, like which was not a northern advantage over the south, which was not a southern advantage over the north, so you'll have to be able to click through. Okay, these things the north had, oh, that's wrong. These things the south had, all right, that's wrong. Okay, there'll probably be a question or two about Lincoln's behavior during the war, like trying to keep the border states, letting the border states keep their slaves, suspending habeas corpus,
Can you repeat that?
letting the border states keep their slaves, keeping the border states, suspending habeas corpus,
Like martial law.
martial law. There could be a specific Gettysburg question.
Like what?
What?
Like what?
A specific Gettysburg question. Okay. Not like casualty rates, but like, how it went, which side took the offensive, why they did, that kind of thing. There could be a Wade Davis bill question.
Can you explain that?
That was the radical Republicans' angrier view of Reconstruction. Now we're sort of up to where we were today. There could be a Lincoln assassination question. That's the first question I saw that hasn't been in the notes or will be in the notes. You might want to read that 360 to 364 question section really closely, or make sure you review that homework. Yes, the Lincoln's assassination section. And then the rest of it will all be Reconstruction questions. So obviously I'd pay attention closely the next couple of days. If you only have to know one amendment, you're 2 amendments short, but I'd really, really, really know the 14th Amendment. I would know the Johnson impeachment thing and all of its ramifications. I would know what a sharecropper is, and that's another one only from the reading and not from the... So there's a couple that are reading only.
Sharecropping?
Yes, sharecropping. More impeachment. I would know impeachment. And then I would really closely pay attention the next couple of days. And the 2 things to really get out of the next couple of days, or tomorrow I mean, is election of 1876 and Plessy v. Ferguson.
What's it? CD?
What did you say the last time?
Election of what?
Election of 1876 / Compromise of 1877. Plessy versus Ferguson. Homer Plessy. There wasn't nothing about it in the textbook.
Go on
I-
Wikipedia,
That's
for
why
God's sakes.
segregation was allowed, like the facilities.
Okay, well, what could you conjecture about Mr. Homer Plessy if it became a segregation case? Okay, so what was his skin color? Good, he was 1/8 black, but that's enough in those days. So he's 1/8 black. He's riding in the whites-only train car in Louisiana. He's arrested. He loses in the lower courts, because the lower courts are in Louisiana. The name of one of the judges that rules against him, that rules that segregation is constitutional, is Ferguson. The Supreme Court takes the case, and they ultimately rule, did Plessy have the right to ride in the whites-only train car, or Are whites only signs constitutional? What would you guess? Whites only signs are constitutional, and therefore segregation is constitutional. What?
They really messed up on that one.
Not their problem. I would say their worst decision, but remember, Dred Scott is at the beginning of the test. Not a proud era for the Supreme Court. Okay, so questions about the test. Yes.
Is black codes gonna be on it? Like anything on that?
Was the term black codes in there? Yes, which was the following was a Southern strategy. I'd certainly know what they were. I have no idea. Yes. Yes.
Can you go over the clearing companies?
That was the last attempted compromise before the Civil War. It was after Lincoln was elected, so it was after November of 1860. In fact, it was early December of 1860. It was for South Carolina, the first state to seceded at the end of December of 1860. So it was early December 1860. What they proposed was making the 3630 line permanent, sort of eliminating the whole Dred Scott, the whole in Kansas, Nebraska, all the stuff that had totally screwed up the whole, caused us to come toward civil war recently. And it was rejected pretty much by all sides, including the Republicans, because compromise was almost impossible at that point. Yes? So, like, if you made a constitutional amendment out of 3630, that would, like, overturn the Dred Scott case. Remember that question you guys keep getting wrong? That's like a review question by now, like the only way to change a Supreme Court decision is, and the answer is always either years later the Supreme Court hears a similar case and rules differently, or there's a constitutional amendment, so they change the Constitution, they change what the Supreme Court is interpreting. So basically it was a proposed amendment to put back the Missouri Compromise and make it like permanent. Yes?
How far back should we start studying?
Compromise of 1850. The first question might actually be reform movements, but I'd say only one. Yes?
What dates
That's it. I mean, like, any other dates?
Any other year?
I guess if you want to know the dates in your head, I would know 1861 to 1865. So, you know, the first third of the test, 1850 to 1860, is the causes of the Civil War. And that can make you go, oh, 1860, that must have been the crucial election where Lincoln was elected. And then 1861 to 1865, you can be like, oh, okay, so I know Fort Sumter must have been 1861. Appomattox Courthouse must have been 1865. Gettysburg, the turning point roughly in the middle, that must have been 1863. So, like, Lincoln reelected, that must have been 1864. So that can sort of all, like, fit into your head if you know those years. And then you can be like, oh, Reconstruction, like, you know, this crazy second Civil War must have been 1865 to 1877. It must have been, so Johnson must have been impeached in the late 1860s, that kind of thing. Yes? I think one question, but also possible for next Tuesday. Yes?
Is all this for Friday or Tuesday?
Friday.
Are you doing one for Tuesday, sir?
I wasn't going to, I was going to do it now. Yes? Yes, it took the 3630 line and eliminated it and made it popular sovereignty in most of those territories above.
Wait, so is this